or needed to feel what is real. Just take it and know that what's here or here is just a lyrical pill. Some you can't taste but feel. You can take it or leave it. It's a lyrical pill. Do you want it or need it to feel what is real? Just take it and know that what's here or here is just a lyrical pill. Some you can't taste but feel. You can take it or leave it. It's a lyrical pill. Do you want it or need it to feel what is real? Just take it and know that what's here or here is just a lyrical pill.
Welcome, Neo Soul. I'm Knyte, and I am definitely in the presence of two of my beautiful friends. I have Miss Bunny Harvey, and I have Miss Black Widow here, and they are here to share spoken emotions with me. And what it is just basically two of them getting together with me and expressing how we feel about poetry. I definitely want to first touch on Miss Black Widow, who I met at the Black Lion. She did a poem about domestic violence that really, really touched my heart, really made me just need to come up to her and embrace her. And I just definitely want to thank you again for coming out.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, it's a pleasure. I remember meeting you at the Black Lion, and you came with so much passion. And would you please just tell us more about you and how you've come to do poetry?
Okay, Domestic Survivor, that piece at the Black Lion, I was feeling really emotional that night. The atmosphere there was right, so it was just perfect. That's a personal piece. Anybody that's heard that knows that I'm talking about domestic violence. I'm talking about, unfortunately, what I was raised in from the time that I can remember since I was like about 7, 8 years old. My mother and father, they were married, but every single day, they were married for 17 years, and every single day was just action going on constantly all the time. And what people don't realize is that not only does it tear the victim down as it did my mother, but it also affects the people around, my brothers and sisters. We all have different issues, especially when it comes to relationships, because it's difficult. When all you've seen is violence in your household, you don't know how to love each other. You don't know what it is to have a healthy relationship. And even though you want it, you might be doing things unconsciously to push people away because you don't understand that this might be an example of healthy love, but you don't know how to reach out to it, because that wasn't what I came from. I came from an atmosphere and an environment where violence was going on every single day. And then when violence is going on, usually it goes out into other phases. You know, where you have substance abuse, because both my mother and father were alcoholics. My mother became an alcoholic as a result of the abuse that was going on. My father, he had always drank from time to time, and then as the years went on, it just got a little worse. And my mother, who never ever took a drink, started. And then when you're being abused, then in turn you abuse the children. So it's a therapy in a sense, and my father's no longer alive. So it was also a way of trying to come to terms with what was going on in my household, and I didn't have anything to, as I got older, and I tried to ask my father, well, why did you do this? And he would never answer me, and you know, I would just kind of push him up to the side and say, well, I don't want to talk to you unless you can explain to me why you did this, not only to my mother, but to our family. And the thing that I came to realize, but it was too late, I didn't get a chance to tell him before he passed, is that it is a disease, just like I talk about in the poem. Mm-hmm. He didn't know because he wasn't raised in a household of love. His family was so dysfunctional, and no one ever told him, you know, that he was important. No one ever told him, I love you. And so when you don't see that, and he also came from a household of domestic violence, so he didn't know any better, I feel like. And so he just perpetrated what he saw, what he thought was an example of a loving relationship. And it's not, because domestic violence stems out of rage and insecurities. And so Domestic Survivor, it's like a letter to him. It's sort of a twofold thing, where I'm saying that I forgive you, and I'm saying at the same time that I understand that you didn't have the answers because you didn't know why you were doing it. And that's when you have to seek outside resources. You know, we as a people frown on seeking professional help. But sometimes that's what you need in order to come to terms with tragic and painful issues, because it's still something that still haunts me. I can't, it's not even something that I can sit here and try to pretend that it still doesn't
Right.
affect me, because it does. And then on the flip side of it, you have women who abuse men, but it's a different type of thing. It's more like they have this rage. It's not a different type of thing, but when women, I think, perpetrate the domestic violence against a man, it's born out of this rage. They don't know what to do with it, and so they're just lashing out, whether it be verbal or whether it's physical. So it's just so many aspects to it, and it goes on every single day, all day. Whether you know somebody who's, personally who's in it, or whether you know a friend that's in it, and it's something that's very difficult to understand, because my mother, I was just like, why did you stay all of those years? Why? And every time she would always say, well, I stayed for the kids, and it wasn't until I became older that I realized, well, I mean, yes, you stayed for the kids, but it had to be something within you that said that this was all that you deserved, that you didn't deserve anything better,
I used to think, I'm like, why do people ask why? In the sense that I don't think a woman who's really been in an abusive situation can really give you a reason. I've written a couple of poems about domestic violence, because I went through it. I mean, most women have gone through it at some point to some extent.
Right.
But while I stayed the time that I stayed, I really can't give you an answer, because there's so much involved in it. There's the time you spent there. There are the kids. There's the love that you felt. There's the love that you still feel. There's the forgiving. Then there's a certain amount of control that when he's in that I'm sorry mode that you have over the situation. There's so many things that. So the thing about it is that I think one of the things that we need to seek, instead of understanding, is acceptance. And at some point it was over. And people that have gone through it because of their parents or whoever, you got to say it's over.
Right.
And I'm not going to take it any further. And the poem that I wrote, and that's the point, where I was when I wrote that. Okay, I told you where I've been with this, but I can't take it any further, because I don't want to take it into the next relationship, and I don't want my child to take it into the next, his relationships and that type thing. So to seek understanding, it's not going to come.
Right.
Because she doesn't understand a lot of it herself. I mean, I don't understand
Right.
it, but I can accept it and say, that's just the way it
Right.
was.
The interesting thing about my situation, because you said that you just got to a point where you decided you weren't going to take it anymore. In my mother's and father's relationship, always, whenever something was going down, someone, the neighbors or someone, would call the police. So back then, at that time, somebody had to say that they witnessed it. Otherwise, no one was getting arrested. So this particular time, it was a real vicious fight. They both had knives drawn. I was trying to stop my father. My brother had my mother, and I couldn't take it anymore. I called the police, and when the police came, I finally said, yes, he did. And this is what happened.
How old were you?
I was like 12 or 13. And so that's what happened. They took him to jail. He probably stayed in there a day. When he came back to the household, though, the police escorted him back to the house so that he can get his things. So my mother never really made the conscious decision. I sort of made it for her. And it's crazy because I blamed myself for a long time for like the breakup of our family, because at that particular point, that was when he left the household, he got all his things, he never came back, and they went through this very nasty, drawn out divorce. And my father would tell me all the time that I was the one that broke up the family unit, because he was very much into this family unit, and you don't tell your business, regardless of what business it was, to outside strangers.
But she didn't go back, right?
She didn't.
So she still made the decision.
She didn't.
Yeah.
She made the decision. I mean, you may have called the cops or
put it into
put the
motion.
step there, but she made this because she could have gone back
She
if
sure
she wanted
could've.
to go back. But maybe she looked at the way that it really was affecting you.
It was
you
like
to
a
go to
blessing.
that extreme. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you weren't doing the abusing. I mean, and so many people feel guilty for what somebody else is doing.
And
You know.
you're right, because it's been a long time. It's only been like probably recently that I've been able to come to the conclusion that she was a grown person. They were both grown adults. We were just children placed in this situation and trying to deal in the situation.
Yeah, but putting blame on yourself.
And you know, the interesting thing is people say God sometimes we get so comfortable in a situation where God actually have to push us out. And had you not made that phone call, it may have gone to the point where everybody, you know, you never know what would have happened, but you doing that was almost like a blessing because she didn't go back.
Right.
And that may have been a phone call. You may have made the phone call that she wasn't able to make, basically. Because had you not, the cycle would have not been broken. You've not have gotten out of that situation. It may have been worse. You not be here with us, inspiring other people to tell them it's okay, you can survive, you can be strong. And people relate off of different things.
Can I hear the poem?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember at 8, wondering what fueled my daddy's hate. Didn't know then that he was born from generations of never-ending cycles of abuse and pain. How could he smile at me, then slap mommy? How could he praise me, then curse mommy? How could he hug me, then push mommy? Every single day was a rage of war in my house. I refereed fights, praying for the police to whistle time out, praying for the neighbors to knock and scream stop. Still, mommy endured 17 years of kicks and slaps. 17 years of kicks and slaps. Every single day was a rage of war in my house. I have 4 sisters and 2 brothers, but daddy, he rarely raised a hand against us. Wait, sirens are screaming out. Suddenly, the chaos stopped. After 17 years of bruises and bitterness, mommy and daddy divorced with spitefulness, leaving us, the children, behind with damaged mentalities. Sometimes I feel anger for no reason at all, a hate that castrates, afraid to accept a man's love. I am a daughter in conflict, torn between the father that cherished me, the father that educated me, the father that provided for me, and the husband that beat his wife every single night. Daddy, can you hear me? I am a tormented psyche, your oldest daughter in conflict. I wish you were alive to hear me testify that I understand now. I understand that domestic violence is a disease. It infects everything it can touch, but no one gave you the vaccine, so it ate you up. Then it invaded my mind like an intravenous line. I fought it and survived. Now I'm here to testify that I've been immunized. I understand now that you were a good man, spiritually sick with an evil inheritance. You were never nurtured and you were never kissed. Oh God, how I miss you, man. I love and forgive you, man, because I know you were doing the best you can. Imperfect man, born from generations of never-ending cycles of abuse and pain. I am, my mother is, my sisters are, my brothers are domestic survivors. So get behind me, Satan. I reject your legacy. The cycle ends right here, right now, with me. I walk in recovery. I walk in recovery. The interesting thing about it, coming up in that, my father, he almost never touched us, ever. Never spanked us, Almost never. For him to give us a spanking, I mean, we really had to have done something just really out there. And it was crazy because I could never understand why, you know, you never touched us, but you constantly, we're talking about, I never knew when an episode was going to break out. Never knew.
I know.
It was just, and when I talk about the fact that I understand now that domestic violence is a disease and that he didn't know how to heal himself because he didn't understand where it was coming from or how to even deal with it. And the thing that I really hate, and it was one of the reasons why I wrote this poem, is that there were people that knew. No one helped them. No one helped them. No one helped my mother, her family, his family, even neighbors that knew. If there had been some intervention for counseling or something, some sort of guidance, you know, things might have turned out differently. But I just think it's something that people cannot close their eyes to, whether they want to close their eyes to it or not. And I feel like if you know someone that's in that position, just try to talk to them, just try to counsel them. Because Bonnie, like you were saying, to try to ask them why, you're not going to get an answer that's satisfactory for you. The only thing you're going to do is sit there and say, you might even tell yourself, oh, well, she's being stupid, or this doesn't make any sense, and you're going to end up dead. But those aren't the things that are running through the victim's mind.
Right.
And that's not even anything they're going to be able to relate to if you even, you know, come at them with that type of mentality. You just try to be there for them. You just try to counsel them, offer them some safe haven if, you know, they're going through those times where, because I had a girlfriend that was going through that, and I talked to her about it, and she's finally out of the abusive relationship that she was in, but I just made sure that I was there for her when she needed me. Told her, you can call me at any time, you can come over to my house at any time. And yeah, he would come over looking for her, and I'd say, she isn't here.
And see, a lot of women, they don't have a safe haven in terms of friends and family. So but a lot of them that want that help, they go to shelters.
Right.
And you see a lot of people, women on the street, and you know you have men on the street too, but we're talking about women here. You got a lot of women on the street who have been victims of abuse. And they got out of the situation, and so they left with nothing.
Right.
And so they don't have that friend or family member, or they don't know where to go to get help. So they just leave. And sometimes they take their kids with them. Sometimes they take their kids somewhere and drop them off. But whatever, they do have the strength at some point to get out of it, whether they do it on their own or they have somebody, you know, to take that first step for them.
And then talking to that, you said you had a poem that you did about domestic violence. Would you like to share it with us, please?
Actually, I don't know that poem by heart.
Okay.
So, and actually, I have never done it on stage because it's personal. And I guess at some point I will, but I haven't decided yet
That's cool.
to do it.
I know, and talking to her, it was kind of amazing. Like I said, we were talking earlier about, she was talking about the kid, and I have a poem that I wrote. It's a true experience, you know, something that I witnessed, and I didn't intervene. And, you know, I'm just read it. It's called Apartment 515. Bitch, you ain't shit. Your crackhead ass was fucking other men. Door slams. Mom start arguing with him. Little nigga, what you gonna do? I'll break your ass in two. Apartment 512 is where despair dwells. A young boy's chest swells for living in an uncomfort of hell. Man beats wife. Child tired of strife grabs the butcher knife in an attempt to save his mom's life. He is willing to do a killing and in the end may lose his own life. 542, I continued to ignore the scenario until the noise became so much to endure. I glimpsed out my back door and into the neighbor's war. There I stare at a 12-year-old child, hair standing wild, bare chest only in his boxer shorts with a butcher knife. Clenched in fist, my boyfriend says, come back to bed, yet I can't. I want to call 911, but they always come, and it's always the same outcome. nothing comes undone. I want this child taken out of the premises, but in my wish, he would end up in the juvenile system where men will abuse him and he's accessible to more foul living. 5:49, I make up my mind and toss the cover over my head and go back to bed, yet regret won't let me sleep. This 12-year-old is surrounded by bad company. My eyes are weak, my tears even weep. I ignore the voice inside of me. I can't get involved in everybody's poverty, but he needs me. What do I do? What do I do? Where do I seek? Lord, please, I beg of thee. It's 6:15 and the episode has ended quietly. But will it come again like a TV screen? As soon as the monkey starts jumping and the mama goes out smoking and humping and Papa goes hunting and is discovering that she's cutting him out of her smoking. I'm coping as best as I can, but this child, this 12-year-old, is living life as a man. I never see him playing or laughing, only crying and knife grabbing, and this pain is stabbing me emotionally. My tears continue to weep even in my sleep. Police tell me to stop calling, let the shit be. Police tell me to stop calling, let the shit be angry. Let the shit be. The police is getting angry at me because no one is complaining but me, yelling I'm not a part of the problem or their family. Lord, again, I beg of thee, where do I go, who do I tell, and how do I save the child in apartment 5-1-12? And basically that was something that, I watched and I'm like, do I call, do I tell, do I get involved? And then hearing your story, it's like, after you call so many times, you tell, what do you do?
Well, you just keep calling.
And I was going to say that's all you can do is keep calling.
And you can call, sometimes you have to make a call the next day to the juvenile justice, to DFACS. I mean, if the cops are not doing anything, then you have to say, well, what else can I do? And there are other lines that you can call. So you just have to say, well, okay, I'll go over the police. And, you call the next person, eventually somebody's going to come out to investigate. And a lot of times you can look at a situation, and even though the abuse may not be going on at that moment, but you can look at the household and see that there's something not quite right here. You can just talk to the children, you can talk to the woman, and you can see that there's something that's not right. So it doesn't just have to be happening when somebody comes to investigate. And once you make enough complaints, they're going to have to really look into it. They can't just go back and close it because, okay, this time we didn't find anything, right. Especially when there are kids involved.
And saying that, I mean, there's a lot of people out here who do get abused, and sometimes people do call and they do complain, and then they get antagonized, like, stay out of my business, don't get involved. There's lots of people out there, and it's amazing how kids like your father, he was once a little boy and he grew up into a man who chose to abuse women, maybe because somebody like me or somebody else didn't, get involved. Or there are times where people do get involved and nothing happens, and they grow up into angry men and angry women. Like you said, women are abusive too.
Yes.
Well, yeah. I just say that I would not just, if I saw it, I would continue regardless. You can say whatever you want.
Right.
You can call me a nosy neighbor. You can call me whatever. But when you look at that, you really have to try to help.
You do.
You just have to try. And because it's not going to go away, and even if you just help one child,
yeah,
you've made a difference.
I agree with Bonnie. You do. You have to, because to try to turn your eye to that and pretend like it doesn't happen, it could be anybody. Mm-hmm. You could personalize it if you have to in order to make yourself get involved. That could be someone that's close to you that could be in that same situation. And it doesn't matter how many times you call, because I can't even tell you how many times the police had come out to our home, and of course, but so many times it gets to the point where they don't care, and it's just another routine thing, and they're going to take their time getting there. But this particular time when I called, they got there and they took the story and they took him in, so.
And it made you the strong sister you are right here. I'm telling you, I know it takes a lot out of you to do that poem. I know it. I can feel it. But in the same time, it's almost like a testimony where your words are inspiring and touching other people and encouraging other people. I can make this phone call, or I can leave, or I can do this. You know, I don't have to be frail, and you don't have to carry a burden of it's not my fault. You probably saved the family, you know, if anything else.
I can see that logically, but emotionally, it's still something that's difficult. There are times when I can say, I did the right thing. And there are other times that I sit there and say, did I do the right thing? But then I rationalize it and I tell myself, yes, because someone would have ended up dead. It was only a matter of time, and actually it was fast approaching. Because we're not talking about isolated incidents. Like I said in the poem, this went on all the time, 24/7. And a lot of times I was breaking up fights. My brother was breaking up fights. I was the oldest girl. I have 4 sisters. He was the oldest. But it got to the point where he would just stand there, you know? And I was the one, and I'm thinking in my mind, this is crazy, insane, I can't believe that this is happening. And then I can't believe that my brother's not even trying to help me to stop them from, you know, seriously killing each other. So it's...
I mean, just saying that, when we were just saying how outside people need to get involved, you got involved, and you know, instead of some of the neighbor doing it, you were a part of it. You made the phone call. You didn't wait for the neighbors or the police to come. You made that phone call, and then just in doing that, you're actually speaking on what you're giving advice about. You know, if you say don't drink that water, but you rather have Kool-Aid because you don't want to touch the water, but you're actually doing the same thing you're telling other people to do. It's safer if I'm doing it, then you can do it, opposed to just preaching and doing something completely different. You saved the family because you made that phone call. Your brother didn't make it. Your cousins, nobody. You made that phone call. So, and that's encouragement right there, you know. And mentally, eventually, it probably will sink in that you did what you had to do, and then just saying that inspired other people to make that phone call, you know.
Yeah.
I thank you for that. Like I said, I mean, when I see you do it, it just touched me. You know, it really touches me when people do things poetically or speak when it's from their heart, and I know it's real, and I know it's a painful thing to get up and express yourself poetically. But those are the people we like to hear.
It really is, because I think a lot of times we get lost in the fact that we're just doing entertainment. But sometimes it's not all about entertainment. It's therapy, I think, for people who choose to make it their therapy. And for me, it's a little bit difficult to be objective and to write objectively. I can do it, and I have done it, but I think I tap into my greatest significance when I'm doing my poetry, when I tap into a personal place, but then try to make it where other people can relate to it too, or can take something away from it. So.
But you do that a lot. You, with relationships, the way you bring a relationship to the point where, this girl would do a poem or something, or just express herself to the point where men up there clapping and just, you know, yeah, it's amazing.
And you have such a beautiful voice. It's like
I taught her how to sing, hit that vibrato.
I think it was Maya that said that when it gets down to it, everything is about relationships. So when someone asks me, so what type of poem do you write? Most of them are just relationship poems.
Do you want it or need it to feel what is real? Just take it and know that what's here or here, it's just a lyrical pill.